Hi, I'm Josh, and something I've been dreaming about for the past several years has actually come true. I built myself a PC. I'm going to talk about that for a little while before I get into the games, so if you're not interested in hearing about computer talk, I've divided up this video into chapters, so you can skip to whatever is interesting to you. The last thing I want to do is bore you, so please do skip this if it does not interest you. But like I had mentioned previously, back in about November, I had resolved to finally get this done for myself as a gift to myself because I am going to be turning 50 this spring. And so I started to really seriously look into it in November of last year. And what I kept seeing over and over again was build a PC now. Do not wait because prices are going to skyrocket. And I'm so glad I did. I will just say right off the bat that the RAM that I purchased for $250 back in, well, towards the end of 2025, I guess, is now selling for $620. I looked it up. It went from $250 to $620 for just the RAM. So I'm so glad I didn't wait, and the financing end of it ended up just working out so well. I sold a whole bunch of my board game collection, probably a good 25% of it, through auctions, raised about $1,000 with that. If you saw my recent book on haul video, you saw that I also sold off a bunch of my books. Also selling various items through Facebook Marketplace leading up to Christmas worked out really well. I got a lot of things sold through Facebook Marketplace, had a couple of generous people help me out, such as my Patreon supporters who are always there to support me. And out of the blue, I actually got a inheritance check because my last grandparent had died a couple years ago, and I had assumed that his children were, with their squabbling, were just going to end up giving away all the inheritance money to lawyers. However, that only ended up being partially true, and just before Christmas I was surprised with a check for a little bit of money from the inheritance, and between all of that I was able to get those purchases done before the end of 2025, before the prices really went absolutely nuts, thanks in part to, well, first of all, obviously there was the whole crypto thing that was pushing computer prices up, and then when AI came along, things just went absolutely banana bonkers. And again, I have nothing good to say about AI other than it's something that could be just a wonderful tool for the advancement of various aspects of science and mathematics, things like weather forecasting and other things that could be super helpful to humanity. But it is just another thing that the billionaires are going to take and use as a way to squeeze out more pennies from us and send them up to them. And so it is something that could be very positively used by humanity, but it's going to be something that will be used to make more money for the people who already have all the money. And if you are somebody who supports AI, this is a family-friendly channel, so I'm not going to say what I think about that. But the prices of PC parts, especially RAM, are pretty wild, and so that's why I'm glad I got it done when I did. It ended up being a much more challenging process than I had anticipated based on the videos I had watched leading up to the start of actually doing it. And I mean, that's mainly because I have zero computer knowledge. As you might know, the computer I've been using for the past 13 years is a 13-year-old Microsoft Surface Pro 1 tablet, and that is why I've been doing all my video editing on it. I've been attempting to do gaming on it, and that's why I was so desperate to upgrade to something more modern. And so my knowledge of computer stuff was zero, and so it was a very long process. It took me 3 full days to do the actual physical build, and on every one of those 3 days I had to make a trip to the Canada Computer Store and get some more parts or swap out some parts. But by the end of the 3rd day I had it built, turned it on, it actually fired up great, and then the bugs started popping up. The first thing was none of my case fans turned on when I first powered up the PC, so that was the first bug I had to work out. And throughout the process of installing the current BIOS and Windows 11 and the various drivers and getting all those up and running, that was another 3 full days of work because of various bugs like the fan thing I was talking about. One other major issue that popped up for me was the fact that when it was running and I was watching things like YouTube videos, the screen would turn black for a second, then come back on, then in a little while turn black and then come back on, and it kept doing that. And so then I had to go through that problem-solving process of researching why is my screen blinking black. The first thing I tried was, again, zero computer knowledge. I didn't realize that I couldn't just take an ancient HDMI cable that's years and years old and just plug it from my computer to my TV for the display and expect it to run my high quality video through that. Apparently that's not a thing. So I went out and I purchased a brand new cable that had a display port connection for my computer and an HDMI connection for my TV. And while that did improve the picture quality, didn't solve the black screen issue. So I went through more trial and error with various other things. And I'm like, really? I just got this really nice new PC, and this is what I'm running into here. So things like that over and over again. So it was, like I said, I think it was another full 3 days before I had all the basics installed and up and running satisfactorily. And then since then, in the past week and a half to 2 weeks, I've been just doing nothing but problem solving, because it turns out that literally nothing from a 13-year-old tablet can just be ported over to a modern PC without major problems popping up. Literally every single thing I've tried to do on this new PC has resulted in one major issue popping up, often multiple major issues that each require a lot of research, a lot of trial and error, probably a good half a day of work for each little problem. For example, just opening a document. I transferred my documents over from my tablet to my computer, went to open a document and it wouldn't open, and I was like, oh, so Microsoft Office doesn't come with Windows 11? Again, zero PC knowledge. I didn't know that Office was a separate thing from Windows, so I was like, okay, what does it cost to buy Office? So I looked online and was like, whoa, those are high prices, and wait a minute, those are monthly prices. You can't just do a one-time purchase and have that product. You have to do a subscription model and pay this money every month. So yeah, that was the first step, was realizing, oh, Office has to be purchased and it's really expensive. Well, so then I'm searching, are there free alternatives to Office? And yes, there are other things out there that are recommended. I can't remember off the top of my head. There were a couple in particular that came recommended, but then I started to wonder, how are they going to interact with my old Word documents? Are there going to be issues? And then I thought, well, maybe there are cheap versions of Office, in the same way that I was able to find a Windows 11 key for only $30 to $35. I thought, oh, there must be places I can buy cheap versions of Office. And sure enough, there were some websites selling Office for roughly that price too, actually $30 to $40 Canadian. And so I put one in the cart, was about to go through the purchase process, and I was like, wait a minute, anytime something is too good to be true, it usually is too good to be true. And so I started to research, is this a reliable website? Turns out not so much. Some people have had it work okay, some people have had it not work at all. So then I was like, oh, I don't know if I want to take the chance here. So then I thought, well, can I somehow get my version of Office that's on my tablet running on my current PC? And eventually I got it to the point where it was running, I think maybe my 2016 version of Office. I got that working on the new PC. Just if you're interested, the cheaper version of Office I was looking at purchasing from those other websites was a 2019 version of Office, because that is still a one-time payment. It's not this Office 365 or whatever it is that requires a subscription payments regularly. But I got this old version of Office, and then I went to open my documents finally, and it came up with, this version might not support all the features of your version of Office or whatever it was. And I was like, whatever, it seems to work okay. So that's just one example. Opening a document on my new PC, and this hours and hours I went through to fix it. And every little thing has been like that with the PC. But as each thing has gotten online and got running, it's been amazing. You can't even imagine what it's like to do video editing on a modern PC compared to a 13-year-old tablet. But that's another thing even. My plan was to switch over for the past 7+ years that I've been running YouTube here, running a YouTube channel. I've been using a free version of Wondershare Filmora as my video editing software, and I've been having some issues with that. It's super easy to use, but there's some weird bugs with it. And I mean, what really settled it was the last gaming video that I uploaded for the games played in October. There was a brief freeze frame where I just inserted a free, like, 10-15 second music clip that the Wondershare Filmora software comes with a handful of free music clips that you can just insert into your video. So I did that. But then when I uploaded my video to YouTube, I got somebody copyright claiming my video because of that piece of free music I had used from Wondershare Filmora, which, I mean, that's probably 99% a YouTube problem. That is actually a widely known YouTube problem, this whole copyright strike business. But what it means is that all the money I make from that video is going to go to the person who copyright claimed it, which means that if I've done my math right, I'm going to be out $0 and they are going to gain $0. But it's still an annoyance to, you know, maybe someday in the distant future my channel will be monetized and then that'll become an issue. But, you know, it was one of those things where I was like, well, I guess I'm glad I'm making the switch. And I decided to make the switch to DaVinci Resolve for my video editing because I've heard many, many good things about the free version of DaVinci Resolve. And it turns out that, wow, there's a lot going on there. I've had to start entirely from scratch to relearn video editing because it turns out that, well, what it feels like is that what I was doing with Wondershare Filmora was like kindergarten arts and crafts, cutting and pasting. And now that I have DaVinci Resolve, it feels like I'm doing real video editing, and I'm like, I have no idea what I'm doing, and I have to essentially start all over from scratch and relearn how to video edit. And this is at a time of year when I am at my busiest for my channel because I need to film and edit my 2025 wrap-up videos. So at the beginning of 2025, I did my 2024 wrap-ups, and at that point I did 3 of them. I did one for my board games, one for my books, and one for TVs and movies. My plan for this year is to do 3 as well, to do the board games and books, but because I didn't really watch much in the way of TVs and movies, I'm going to do a 3rd one just on video games, I think. So I have those, plus I'm already backed up with my videos. I have at least 3 concerts that I've gone to that I have video footage for that I wanted to turn into videos that have been languishing for the past several months and waiting for me to get to them. So I have at least half a dozen videos backed up waiting for me to get to at a time when I'm having to take a lot of time to relearn how to edit videos. So I hope you'll be patient with me. I will get to those as fast as possible, and the videos that I do come out with might not have the best look or best editing, but I'm gonna learn as fast as I can and do my best here. So that's been my past 2-3 weeks, is just intense problem solving and learning and exploding my brain with computer knowledge. But I'm so grateful and so happy that I have this PC now. This is something that I can see lasting the rest of my life. If I ever need to upgrade anything, I can just upgrade individual parts for it, and I can finally get to all the games in my Steam library that are more than 1 gigabyte of memory requirement on the computer. So the rest of the details about my PC I actually sent to my Patreon supporters in a post on Patreon where I broke down the various components that I picked up and the total cost I ended up paying for the computer. So Patreon supporters will get a chance to see a little bit more about the specifics of the build there, and if you're interested in becoming a supporter, do check it out. For just $2 a month, you can sign up. You can even just sign up for 1 month, see those details, and then unsubscribe again. So if it's worth it for you to dive more into my PC adventure for $2, that option's there for you too. let's get into my video gaming. So, what did I do when I got the PC built? What's the first game I got into? Well, I was really excited actually to get back to Assassin's Creed Odyssey, the game that I had explored quite a bit back when I had a gaming laptop for a little while before passing that along to my youngest son. And so when I got back into Assassin's Creed Odyssey, I had forgotten how close I was to completing the game, because I think I was sitting at around 220 hours on the game already, and it only took about 10 more hours, up to about 230 hours, to finish the final main storyline of the game. So I did that. I played a little while beyond that as well. So at about the 240 hours mark is where I got to. I had gotten my character leveled up to level 58. I had completed all the main storylines, so at that point I took my character back to my home island, where there was this option to take kind of this final retirement cruise, and so I had my character go on the cruise, and it was great. I was ready to wrap up the game, uninstall it, and move on to other things. I forgot to add one kind of wild stat, which is that after playing the game for 240 hours and completing all of the main storylines, getting my character up to level 58, all that stuff, of the 93 Steam achievements that are available for the game, I've only completed 53 of the 93, which means that there's a ton of game left that I haven't even explored. I imagine a lot of it relates to side quests and that sort of thing. It's just that the sheer number of them is astronomical. I don't know what kind of illness a person would need in order to complete 100% of this game, and I'm sure some people have done it, but it's just wild, the sheer amount of content that's available with 240 hours in, only completing 53 out of 93 achievements. There's a lot more that could be explored if somebody had the desire to do so. Just throwing that in there. And then, wouldn't you know it, a couple of the members of my old crew show up, found me in my retirement, and went, "Hey, we got some other stuff going on here. Why don't you grab your gear and go on a treasure hunt with us?" And I opened up the game map, and the whole entire map was gone and replaced with an entirely new game map, albeit a much, much smaller one. And I was like, "Are you kidding me? You just introduced a whole new game map for me to explore now?" So I was like, but no, I gotta leave it behind and move on to new stuff for now. But I'm not going to uninstall it, because there's a very good chance I'll come back to it and explore the game a little bit more, even though I thought I was totally done with it. My final rating, after going up and down with it a fair bit over the past several months, is an 8.5 out of 10. Like I said, the setting, the atmosphere is just extraordinary. It has a massive world map of the entire country of ancient Greece, with all its famous locations, inhabited by all these famous characters from ancient Greece that you can interact with, and it's beautifully done. But the gameplay itself is just so repetitive. I basically spent 240 hours killing people, doing a few other odds and ends here and there as different things popped up, but for the most part you're just running around murdering people over and over again. So I did have a lot of fun with it though, and I rate it 8.5 out of 10. Being December, naturally I acquired a couple of new games as well. So this year I volunteered to host my family's Christmas get-together at my house here, and Evan, I guess, had been seeing on social media that Hues and Cues was a popular game to be played by people on TikTok or whatever, I don't know. But Evan picked that one out to play as a family, as a group game, and I admit I was a little unsure about it. I thought, a color guessing game, is that really going to be all that fun? I was skeptical, but we did play it. Well, actually, I'm going to talk about that in a minute when I talk about the games that I actually played. The other game that I acquired is The Hobbit, There and Back Again. This was my one actual Christmas present I received this year, and this was given to me by my older son, Evan. Truthfully, I'm glad I didn't get any other stuff, because if you watched my video about my game, or my book on haul, you know that I am not acquire more stuff, but I'm actually actively trying to offload things. So, getting only one gift for Christmas was totally fine with me, because it's a great one, The Hobbit, There and Back Again. I'm going to be talking about it for my next month video for the games played in January. But let's talk about the board games that I played in the month of December. I'll start with the lowest rated of the 3 games that I played in December, and this is Transformers Deck Building Game, which I played 2 players with my younger son Wyatt. This is the game that Wyatt had actually requested that I purchase for us roughly 2 to 3 summers ago, because he had attended a week-long board game camp here in town, and this is one of the games that they had played and he had enjoyed it. So he requested I pick it up, and it's been sitting on my shelf for the past couple years because every time I had picked up the rule book, I had just something about it was not working with my brain. Partly because it was just sounded so boring, and I'm just not super interested. Well, I'm not really at all interested in the Transformers IP. It's just not something I was never ever into, really. And so I was struggling with it. It was a long rule book, a lot to learn, and I just kept trying to get into it, and then I'd give up, set it aside for ages. But finally I was like, okay, I've got the Christmas holidays here. Let's finally get this done and get this played with Wyatt. So I also watched a couple of how to play videos that helped me out as well. And it's funny, I don't know if I've ever really approached a first play of a game with so much inner animosity from the chore of having to actually learn it, which is kind of unusual for me. And so anyways, Wyatt and I played the cooperative version of the game. We did pull off a victory, and in terms of how I feel about the game, having I finally played it, it does just feel quite fiddly with a lot of little rules to remember, and it just somehow doesn't feel very thematic. There is the thematic aspect of being able to transform your character into vehicle mode or robot mode and having slightly different abilities based on what you choose to go with at any given time. But like I said, I don't really have any familiarity with the IP, which is the big difference between me and Wyatt, because Wyatt does quite enjoy the Transformers, and he was really enjoying telling me about all the characters that came up and the various things that we discovered as cards were revealed in the game. So that was really cool. And ultimately, 100% of my enjoyment of the game was spending the time with Wyatt, playing with him, and listening to him talk about Transformers. So, that part of it was super enjoyable, just having that time with Wyatt and seeing him have fun with it. But other than that, I really just see it as being a fairly below average deck building game, and I give it a 4 out of 10. When I asked Wyatt for a rating, he said it was an 8 out of 10. So not one of his top favorites, but one he did enjoy playing. It remains to be seen whether he'll ever request to play it again. I won't be upset if he doesn't, but I also won't be upset if he does, because I'll get to spend some time with my younger son. Next, Hues and Cues. So we did get it played with the family, and what's interesting about it is it's meant to be a party game that is an individual competitive game. A lot of party games either are team games where there's often one team against another, or maybe there are cooperative things. This one is a competitive party game where one player is trying to give clues to have players guess specific color hues on the board. There are 2 guesses that can be made with 2 clues given for each player, and we played it with 14 players. So what we ended up doing was we split up the 14 players into 7 teams of 2, and so each team member had their own pawn, so that one player could make the guess with the first clue, the other player could make the guess with the second clue, or in the case of the clue giver, their teammate would make 2 guesses with their 2 pawns, and that really ended up working out really great. I loved the sort of pairing up into teams of 2 aspect of it. We also changed the aspect of taking turns to place your pawns, where normally you're supposed to go in clockwise order from the clue giver, choosing a color, and I just said free for all. As soon as the clue is given, you can place on whatever color you want. So people are kind of like trying to get in there quickly, but also trying to think, well, is that where we actually want to go? And so there's a bit of a fun real-time aspect to it, and we just kind of embraced the chaos and had a lot of fun with it. Ultimately, the game had a bit of a similar feeling to Wavelength, but whereas Wavelength is one of those team versus team games, like I said, this is more individual competitive, but similar feeling in terms of how clues are given and what you're trying to guess. Like I said, I wasn't expecting much out of it, but it worked fantastically. We had a ton of fun with it, and partly it is because of how big our group was. This would not be a game I'd want to play necessarily with just a couple of other people. It works very well as Well, I mean, you could play with half a dozen. I don't think I'd want to go fewer than about 6 players, but it does work really well with this huge group. And I don't know if I have many games that handle 14 players and play really well. In fact, when the first game was finished, some people were asking to play again, but some of us old people were like, I just want to sit back and relax because I'm already exhausted from socializing. But yeah, we had a lot of fun with it. I ended up rating the game 7.5 out of 10 overall. I don't know if that necessarily reflects how much I enjoyed that particular play of the game. The gameplay was super fun, but when I have to compare it to all my other games and all my other party games and so forth, I think a 7.5 out of 10. It's obviously a very good rating, but that's where I landed at for Hues and Cues. A little bit later on the same day, my youngest brother pulled my copy of Agent Avenue off the shelf and asked me if I wanted to play a couple games with him because it's just a super quick card game. It's one that I have played with him in the past, and it was funny, the previous time that we did play together last year, we played several games back to back, and I kept beating him, and he would say, one more game, and I beat him again. He'd say, let's try again, one more game, until finally he did beat me, and he was like, all right, that was good. So, and at that time, he'd only rated it 6 out of 10, but I'm a little suspicious of that rating, because here he is at my house, and that's the one game he pulls off the shelf to play with me. But anyways, so we did play, and I beat him, and played again, and I beat him, but this time it only took to game 3 for him to actually beat me this time. So we ended up playing a 4th time, but the 4th time I beat him on turn 2 of the game. So that was kind of funny. But yeah, like I said, I'm a little suspicious of a 6 out of 10 rating, but it's just such a fun, quick playing little game. I rate it 9 out of 10. And my brother, like I said, gives it a 6 out of 10. And that was my gaming month for December. Just a little bit of family gaming, but fun was definitely had still. I would really love to hear what you've been playing lately. Have there been any games that you've been particularly enjoying? Did you get any games for the holidays? Are there any hot new titles in your hands that you're excited to get to the table? You know that I would love to hear all about it. Please do get into the comments and let me know. And in any case, I just really appreciate you being here, watching me ramble about computers and games. Cheers. Hi, I'm Josh. To own the latest version of whatever The Office comes in. The Office. Such a computer idiot here, but I'm doing my best. I think that was my gaming month for the December. And that was my gaming month. What are you excited to get to the